الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So yes, I'm covering for Shaykh Ibrahim, who is the voter. In the absence of the voter, unfortunately, you have to be content with me, so with sand, with dust. Last time, I think, when we gathered here, we spoke about some of the things that are that we notice as special features or have in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They have a special connection with Ramadan. Today we're just going to expand on that theme and actually reflect on the verse of fasting itself, which prescribes fasting, which is أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. And in particular on this, the final point, لعلكم تتقون, so that you may attain taqwa or achieve taqwa, as it's usually translated. What is taqwa? What is the meaning of taqwa? And surprisingly, it's a ubiquitous concept. It comes up everywhere. I mean, the first ayat of beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, it's not the first one, but one of the first ones is هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. The Quran is a book of guidance for the people who have taqwa. So what is taqwa? It's quite an enigmatic even concept. It's usually translated as when you say taqwa of Allah, it's translated as fear of Allah, or sometimes as God consciousness, awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But these are just one can say effects of taqwa rather than taqwa itself, or important aspects of taqwa, but not the entire meaning of taqwa as such. So I think the confusion even starts even at the etymological level. Where does taqwa come from? So there are theories. It comes from the root taqwun or quwwa, sometimes even said. But it's largely agreed upon that it comes actually from waw, qaf, ya, wiqaya. And not surprisingly, quite logically, if you are a morphologist, it actually waw converts to ta, and then ya converts to waw, and so what was waqiyun becomes taqwun and becomes taqwa. So and then we get to the meaning. What is the meaning of the word taqwa? And it's been suggested that it's basically أن تجعل بينك وبين ما تخاف وقاية. So you put some kind of a barrier, some kind of an obstruction between yourself and something that you dislike and something that you fear. So that is the in a sense the literal meaning of the word taqwa or ittiqa, or whatever of its various inflections. But then how does this work? When we have ittaqun nar, protect yourself from fire, put a barrier between yourself and fire, it works very well there. But then we have ittaqullah, put a barrier between yourself and Allah. How does that work? It doesn't quite. It's quite. It's counterintuitive. That it's how can you Allah is someone that you should be trying to get close to rather than put a barrier between yourself and. So in a sense that when you look at it from that point of view, it seems ittaqullah it seems to be a challenge. Dare, it's a dare. Protect yourself again, from God if you can, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you can. If you think you're capable enough, good enough, if you want to carry on living as a libertine as you would like to live, then try to find a way of putting a barrier between yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This reminds me of a story which is narrated, I think it's Ibrahim ibn Adham, and these things have definite heuristic value, even if not historical value. They teach us important lessons. So a person came up to Ibrahim ibn Adham rahmatullahi alayhi and said, Shaykh, I have this, huge appetite for sin. I just think of things which are sinful. How do I stop myself? And the Shaykh, unlike somebody who nowadays would have said, "Astaghfirullah, go away," and all that, he said, "Okay, let's talk about it." Said, "Okay, it's absolutely fine if you want to continue sinning, but try to do 5 things. There are 5 requirements that you have to do. If you can do that, do go on as carry on doing as you wish." And so the first thing he said was, okay, if you want to sin, that is going obviously against the will and command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then go somewhere where Allah does not see you, where Allah cannot see you. How is that possible? I can't, there isn't a place where Allah doesn't see me. Okay, let's move on. If Allah can see you all the time and you still want to sin, then it's logical that you go and sin somewhere, some place which doesn't belong to Allah, which Allah doesn't own. Because, you know, if you want to sin against someone, you have at least a decency not to do it in their face as such. So, well, that's not possible either. Then he said, fine, let's try something else. If you want to commit sin, then you need energy, you need strength, and you get strength from the rizq and the provision that Allah provides you. If you want to sin, find some other means of nourishment, some other source of nourishing yourself, strengthening yourself, and then go on sinning as much as you like. Well, not possible again. I said, okay, let's leave these things aside. Let's move on. You can carry on sinning, carry on living a life of sin, and then you die. When the angels come out and they want to take you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of resurrection for reckoning, refuse to go with them. Just said, sorry, I can't. I'm not coming. Do what you want. I simply ain't coming. As that's not possible. They will drag me. Okay. Then the final thing is that this is, they can drag you. You can't, obviously they will overpower you. They can take you, but you still have some, a final, final tool left in the belt, and that is that if the angels say to you, they read your record of deeds, and say, oh, you committed this sin on this day, this sin, just deny it. I didn't do it. Sorry, you got it wrong. You got the wrong guy. And the person was, by this time, he was shivering and trembling with fear. And he was saying that, but what will happen to the Kiram and Katibin, the angels who are with us? They are writing everything we do. What will happen to my own limbs that will testify against me that I have done these sins, and as the Quran tells us? And what will happen to the testimony of the place, the earth itself, that will complain, will testify against me that, oh, this person committed this gross act of indecency or sin, etc. upon me? What will happen? What will happen to all that? And he had, understood the message, and he went away, a transformed man. So this is something that it seems from ittaqullah, protect yourself from Allah. Try if you can. See if you can do it. But of course, there is a deeper meaning to it, and the meaning is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has attributes which are attributes of generosity, of benevolence, of beauty, the beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then some attributes which are the attributes of majesty, of jalal. So sifatul jalal and sifatul kamal. Jamal, like rahmah, mercy, compassion, forgiveness. These are the sifat which reflects Allah's jamal or beauty as such. And then there are sifat which reflect Allah's majesty and power and authority. So like al-muntaqim, the avenger, al-mutakabbir, the supremely supremely exalted or worthy of all praise, And effectively, what's being said to us is in ittaqullah, is that you can't afford to be at the receiving end of Allah's sifatul jalal, of Allah's attributes of majesty. You just be content and try to remain at the receiving end of Allah's sifatul jamal, the attributes of beauty and mercy and forgiveness and benevolence, and try to remain that way. It's much safer. You can't afford. So, in a sense, think of it this way. Of course, there is no comparison, but just to make a point, that there is someone who we love so much that we just simply can't afford to have them, for whatever reason, be displeased with us. Our parents, for example, spouses, whatever. That we care for them and we love them far too much to be able to afford receiving their anger and their anything but their love. And so we are always anxious, always, we always worry about these kind of things, that I hope I don't do something that earns me the displeasure of this person. And this, something similar works here as well, that we cannot at all afford to be at the receiving end of Allah's wrath, of Allah's anger. And hence we have to always try to remain, we have to always be careful, and that's where the idea of fear comes in. We have to be anxious and fearful to make sure that we always remain within the boundaries and the limits that will bring us to Allah's pleasure. So this is where the meaning comes in, that God consciousness or consciousness and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, Allah is not tyrant. وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. Allah does not do dhulm. So what is this fear? This fear is this one. This, the fear of someone who you love far too dearly to be able to afford receiving their anger, receiving their wrath. And this is the meaning of taqwa. That, if we can put it this way, that we care for someone far too much and we love someone far too much. We love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the extent, and that we are consciously aware of our duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of ensuring that we don't put ourselves in a position whereby we become worthy of receiving anything but Allah's mercy and compassion and love. So from this, it must be obvious that taqwa is not we can't talk of taqwa in terms of achievement in the correct sense, if you know what I mean. That you can't say I've achieved taqwa and that's it. That is, it's not a summit to be sort of conquered. It's an ongoing process. It's a lifelong process. So we can talk about it in terms of attaining taqwa. That there are various levels, and you work along those levels and try to reach higher levels of taqwa and try to be as close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as possible. And so how does that work in Ramadan? How does fast? This is next point. How, if we can say that taqwa means being always cautious and wary and aware, just conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you don't end up earning Allah's wrath or anger, and you always try to maintain yourself and try to limit yourself within boundaries that will definitely take you towards Allah's pleasure and love and mercy. So if this is what taqwa means, then how does that work with fast? How does fast? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ is end of the instruction to fast. So how do we get that? Well, at least in a few ways. First is simple, that when we are fasting, let's put it this way: what takes us away from the awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from yearning for Allah's love? It's just our passions and our appetites, carnal appetites and desires, and these are some of the things that keep us away. So if you block that route, what do we get? We get at least two things. One is that we are able to then see the point of it all. That you know, if we can stop ourselves for a short period of time from something which is entirely permissible and at other times, and so it's not really that difficult after all. It can be maintained. It can be, and this, you know, it's not just about abstention that we do in fasting, but generally when a person is fasting, we are away from sins. We are, we try to make a conscious effort to do as much good as possible and stay away from as much bad as possible. So this is what we get at the end of it. That the realization that really it's not all that difficult. You know, we just have to basically make a firm intention, make a firm commitment to ourselves, and inshallah the rest will follow easily. So we get that. And secondly, at the more human level, what we get is that the source of our desire, which is food, drink, and relations, etc. When there's a restraint put on them, the nafs and the soul naturally gets weaker, and we get the opportunity to reflect more on the things that actually matter. Things like this, things like taqwa, things like trying to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at least in these two ways, Ramadan helps us to attain taqwa, to attain this understanding, this realization that we can then continue to build on later on. So the point of mentioning this was that if we are aware what taqwa actually means, then we can work towards achieving in Ramadan, and this is something that we should try to look forward to and try to achieve. Yes.
Can you ask questions?
Please, yes.
Yes. From what I understand, if we take taqwa from the root while carving you're saying it's a barrier between something and something. Is that something good or bad? Because to me, it seems that the barrier is between you and anything that Allah dislikes. So it's not a barrier between you and good. So it's a barrier between you and the wrath of Allah, but not a barrier between you and the mercy of Allah. So if you put a barrier between you and the wrath of Allah, then you can achieve the other.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So that's what we came up to. That's what it actually means. Because when you say ittaqullah, literally it just means, literally, if you look at it that way, it means that put a barrier between yourself and Allah. It doesn't specify the wrath of Allah. If he said ittaqu adhab Allah, that makes sense, because that's the same thing as ittaqu nar. But it doesn't say that. And so then we have to go through this process of so ultimately that is what we are trying to get at.
Maybe what I'm trying to say is maybe we cannot achieve the mercy of Allah without putting that barrier between us
Absolutely.
and Allah's wrath, because if we're disobedient, then
Absolutely. That is what taqwa is about. And then when we look at, for example, Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, he has defined taqwa as al-khawf min al-jalil, which again ties into our point, al-jalal, the attributes of Allah's majesty. So we fear from being at the receiving end of those attributes and the effects of those attributes. Wal-amal bit-tanzil, and then when we have that, or it's fair to say, along with that, we will act on tanzeel, on the revelation, on the Quran. So whatever Quran whatever has been revealed for us in terms of instructions. So we abide by the instructions of the Quran and Sunnah with the view that we are trying to avoid the ghadab and the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then thirdly, he says, وَالْقَنَاعَةُ عَلَى الْقَلِيلِ. If I remember correctly, وَالْقَنَاعَةُ عَلَى الْقَلِيلِ means that be content with whatever little you have, and the reason for that is وَالْإِسْتِعْدَادُ لِيَوْمِ الرَّحِيلِ, because the objective for us coming to this world is to prepare for the day of travel. So when you're preparing for travel in this period, you try to minimize your consumption. You just try to be focused on the journey ahead. So that is why al-qana'atu ala al-qalil is necessary, so that we can actually prepare for the next journey ahead. So again, that just emphasizes this the point that you've made, that you have to put a barrier between ourselves and Allah's wrath, so that we can achieve Allah's pleasure. Yes.
Just had another question. With regards to, you mentioned one of the names, the Avenger, for example.
Sorry,
The Avenger.
Yeah.
So with some of the names of Allah, can humans say when there's a lot of injustice? At what point can humans say enough is enough and justice has to be established? Or do they need to receive some sort of ayah from the Quran or something? You know, say an imam, for example, when does he say it's enough?
Sorry, what?
Say if there's grave injustice and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that injustice has to be stopped, otherwise.
Well, I think when we okay, the attribute al-muntaqim, that's definitely that is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and unfolds in very ways in his in various ways in his creation. But what we don't have the capacity or the capability to do is to determine which is a reflection of which event signifies Allah's intiqam as such. So we can't determine which is which. This is a obviously very broad question, and it has it's not been. People have been writing about this for centuries. It's called the problem of theodicy in theology, that the problem of evil. There is a lot of evil in the world. How can a good, merciful God hold all this? So there are various answers. But what it is that for the person on the receiving end of the evil, there is always good. This is what the Quranic understanding is. There is always good in it, because the world is a test. And it just depends how we take that. And then, so yes, justice, there has to be efforts made. There have to be efforts made to remove justice from the world within our limited capacities. That's very important to remember. Our job is not to rid the world of evil. Our job is to fulfill Allah's commands. And when الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة, what do? قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. People who are suffering from injustice, or not just injustice, any kind of thing that is hurtful, we are required to submit to Allah's will, do within whatever is within our capacity to ward off that evil, but never to transgress that and take matters. So we can't. I think to answer your point, we can't say that this particular event. I mean, people, unfortunately, quite unfortunately, sadly rather, when there is an earthquake in somewhere or a tsunami comes, oh, that's Allah's ghadab. How can you say that?
What I mean is just remember the Prophet. He never used to be angry for his own sake. He only used to be angry when Allah's law was being.
Yes.
So when, as imams, as lay people, can we say, I'm being angry on behalf of Allah? I don't. Because I think it's.
No, I understand your point. When we said that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would get angry when a law of Allah was violated, what did he do? That's what we have to remember. He didn't.
As in he would do what Allah would command him. So if Fatima were to steal, he would cut her hand, even though she was his daughter.
It was a hand, yeah. So it was and he would uphold that. But the thing is that he would not. The hadith itself that you quoted continues that he would not, or the impression that we get from the hadith is that he would not lash out as such in anger. He would, if there was a problem with a particular individual, he would make a public comment about it. He would, rather than pointing out the individual himself or herself, he would make a public observation that what's wrong with people, why are people doing this? So how he dealt with that is a different matter. So we have, and that's what we have the uswa for. We have the uswa for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, uswa al-hasana, to know how to react and how to behave in different situations. So generally, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was very merciful. What the hadith means is that he would not get angry for himself, because dunya was too little in his views or in his eyes, too worthless to be gotten angry over. But if a command of Allah was violated, then that was something serious. But does not mean that Rasulullah's anger meant that he would express that anger in in a rash kind of manner. It would be through his merciful nature, then how he would try to resolve the issue or deal with the matter. Okay.
No, there's another booking.
Yeah. No, جزاكم الله خير. Okay. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله ونشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفره ونتوب اليه.